Welcome to AP Environmental Science. In this video, we are going to talk a little bit about adaptations, particularly the role that adaptations play within natural selection. Now, the term natural selection should be review for you. You should have talked about it in your past biology courses. And I want to remind you that there is natural variation within a population, and that variation is due to random mutations at the genetic level. So we're looking at swapping out bases within that strand of DNA. And this random mutation leads to genetic diversity. So not all the individuals are exactly the same. Now, these mutations can be good or bad. So some mutations help the individual to better survive and reproduce, and that means they'll have more offspring. Their offspring are going to be able to get more food. They're going to be able to outcompete others, and that mutation will then get passed on to subsequent generations. But other mutations might make it a little bit more difficult for an individual to survive and reproduce. So if it's not able to get as much food, it's not able to outcompete others, not able to have enough space, not able to avoid predators, that individual is less likely to have babies and pass that DNA with that mutation on to the next generation. So an adaptation is just the special science word for a mutation that increases an individual's chance of surviving and reproducing. And this is really just focusing on a particular environment or a particular location, because some locations might favor different mutations or different adaptations. So remember, you've probably seen this image before. So we have natural selection in a nutshell. If these birds prefer eating green beetles, and that population has mostly green beetles and a few brown beetles, over time, if the green beetles stand out more, the birds are going to eat more of the green beetles. Green beetles are not going to have as many babies. So over time, you're going to have a population that is mostly brown beetles with just a few green ones, and those green ones get picked off really easy. So this is natural selection. And in fact, natural selection is the mechanism behind evolution. So again, remember, the ability of an individual to survive and reproduce is referred to as fitness. It's not making it the strongest, fastest, able to lift the most weight, that kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about. Fitness is just being able to survive and live longest in a particular location and have the most babies. So natural selection is the survival of the fittest. So evolution, it happens when populations, and that's the key, populations with inherited variations, they're exposed to environmental factors that favor reproductive success of some individuals over the others. So remember, populations evolve, not individuals. And what drives evolution here, that is pressure from the environment. So changing environmental conditions might favor different adaptations than were favored in the past. Now, what is the evolutionary impact of environmental change? Well, remember, changes in the global climate are going to alter those local habitats. And human activities could also alter the local habitats. So now that habitat doesn't look like it did in the past, so now some traits might be beneficial that weren't beneficial in the past. There's actually a relatively recent article that was published in the journal Science that looks at the changes in precipitation patterns across the world due to climate change and how that has impacted natural selection. I have the abstract here from that paper, and you are more than welcome to pause the video, read the abstract. You can also Google the title of the paper because it is an open access article, and you can read through there. So why can't a species just adapt to changing climate? Well, there are two key pieces to this. First of all, the genes for the new trait have to already be present in the gene pool. You're not just going to have a new trait come out of nowhere. That DNA has to already be there. Also, the generation time for species, so how long it takes to reach maturity and have offspring and then have those offspring reach maturity, it's a pretty long time for most species. Now, if we're looking at insects, those have a very short generation time. But typically, as the species gets larger in size, it starts to have a longer generation time. So these generation times get to be so long that the individuals are not able to keep up with these rapidly changing conditions. So in summary, species adapt to their environment over time, and this is through incremental or very small changes at the genetic level. And environmental change might be able to threaten a species' survival, and the way that species are able to deal with that is by altering behaviors, or they have to move to a new location, or they perish or die. Unless there is some random mutation that is already present in that gene pool that allows those individuals to survive. Now again, this was pretty quick moving through the information, so please send me your questions here at the end and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And I hope that as you watch this video, you were able to review things from the past and make some connections to really learn something new.